1400 years ere seed sown. Truth was twisted, its seeds were grown. Break the lies, spark the mission. Welcome to Quranic Inquisition.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Peace of the Lord to all of you. Shalom, assalamu alaikum, namaste. Welcome to the show. We have once again with us Noel from Malta, who is going to be talking to us about, well, Arabic, Aramaic, the Quran, Malta, and all of that good stuff. Hello, Noel. Welcome back to the show. How are you doing?
Hello, JC. Thank you for having me again. I'm doing fine. I hope that you are doing fine as well.
Yeah, I'm doing fine. I'm looking forward to see what you've got in store for us. The previous shows were quite fascinating as you were talking about how the language was morphing. Normally, we know there is a lot of influence in Arabic from Aramaic, but you were starting to put things on a map and things are starting to make more sense. So, looking forward to what you've got prepared for us today. Whenever you are ready, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. So today we're going to put in practice, right, what we discussed last time. And I have an example. It's not everyone agrees with it, as we shall say, but we'll see both arguments, okay? And this example is for the Aramaic, for a possible evidence of the bilingualism between Aramaic and of these people that were bilingual in Arabic and Aramaic. Okay. Now, as we saw last time, this is just a bit of a recap, right? The Aramaic to Arabic transition happened gradually between 600 to 900 AD. 900 AD is quite recent, let's say, and compared to when by that time Sahih al-Bukhari has already been written. Okay, Malta also was under the part of the Arabic Empire. Okay, and as Owens had said, during this period, the Aramaic was also widely spoken, and not only by non-native speakers, not only in the Middle East, but also in the Arabic Islamic diaspora. Okay, so what it is? It started with this. This is a slide on Islamic origins. Okay, and it started with when I speak with my Spanish friends, I noticed that, well, I know that in Spanish the word for mosque is mezquita, but I was written this book by, as I was preparing this material for Islamic origins, right? And I met this this text in the book called Il Malti Elf Sanata Storia. And in here, it caught my eye that mezquita was called synagogue. Now, this was during the time that Mel was doing the series by A.J. Deuce. And in this series, we have Benjamin of Tudela, that is traveling to Sicily, right? He described the grand mosque, the grand synagogue of the Jews there in Palermo, and then he went on to describe the interesting interactions between the exilarch and the caliph. And this word here, that therefore, and we're saying, okay, so what are the Jewish influence on early Islam? Okay, what was Islam at this time? And therefore, to find that in Malta, mezquita means synagogue, but I know that mezquita in Spanish means mosque is very interesting. And not only that, but by the 1750s, the Saldanis records this word mezquita to mean a mosque. So, between the 15th century until the 18th century, the definition of this word changed from synagogue to mosque. Now, this is the Grand Synagogue Benjamin of Tudela described, right? Right in the Jewish quarter, it's Sephardic Jews. Okay, it is now reopened as a synagogue. Okay, and it's known as La Mesquita de Palermo. Okay, so let's see about the etymology. So we start with the word itself, mesquita, right? It's the Maltese word. According to Aquilina, it can derive either directly from Spanish mesquita. I heard it mesquita, and also it can be rendered as well as mesquita. Actually, I remember I met a guy from Valencia, and he rendered it. He told me actually that it should be written as mesquita as well. And the Italian is mesquita. And according to Wikipedia, then it goes a bit further back and says it was from Castilian mesquita or mesquita. Now, the word mosque, just as general knowledge, is taken from the Italian mesquita. And finally, this word is taken from the Arabic masjid. What is also interesting is that we have also a toponym called Tamizjet in Malta. This was found by a Maltese scholar called Wettinger. Now, Masjid, we know that Arabic masjid means a mosque, right? So again, so we have this duality not only in the Romantic languages, right? That the word mesquita can mean, or mesquita can mean both a synagogue and a mosque, but also in the Arabic version we have masjid, which can mean both a synagogue and a mosque. And here it's also like as a parenthesis, we have to keep in mind that the Jews in Sicily and Spain were Arab-speaking Jews, but they wrote the Arabic in the Hebrew script. So it's like how as we saw in the previous episode, the earliest the Arabs that first started to write Arabic, they wrote it in the Aramaic script. Here we have Jews that are speaking Arabic, but they're writing Arabic in the Hebrew script. It was also interesting, this comment by the linguist, right, that the masjids are named as how they're named because of the Himyarites, right? Masjid, MSGD. And we have to keep in mind that Yemeni was also a major component of the early Muslim settlers in Spain. This comment actually that I had to, the military commander who took Malta was named Habashi. This is what Wettinger wrote, and it means Habashi means Abyssinian, which is Ethiopia. But actually, later I found out that actually this may not be the case, but it can be a tower called Habashi in Tunisia. So I have to put it on a timeline. What do we have? We have 1480s, Mesquita, Maltese means synagogue. 1492, expulsion of the Jews from the Spanish realms. 1537, we have the recording of this Tamizjet, which referred to this synagogue. So in the memory of the people, of course, because in 1537, there were no Jews living anymore, but the synagogues still, the building still existed, and the masjid there, Wettinger concludes, must mean to the synagogue. And in 1610, Andalusi Arabic becomes extinct, and in 1750 we have recorded this word mesquita to mean a mosque. Now, there is an article by Al-Jallad, and he says that from masjid to mesquita, phonologically, it's a bit difficult, So let's forget about the Arabic. Yes, he says that the masjid was a loanword from Aramaic, and it comes from masjeda, right? As this word is also attested in the Nabatean inscriptions to mean altar or cult stone. Okay, so what basically does he say in this in his article? That mesquita is coming from masjeda, right? We also have masjida, ta masjida, the Arabic masjid. So the Arabic masjid is derived from masjeda, and you can see all those A's there, right? Only in Arabic is it dropped. And therefore, it says maybe there was a Himyarite influence, right? And from the Arabic masjid, we also have the Maltese masjid. Now, if we put it on a map, then we can see why this is interesting. Because mesquita, the word mesquite, according to Al-Jallad, is derived from Aramaic. So therefore, when Spain was conquered, it must mean that at least by that time, the people that conquered, or these Arabs that conquered Spain, were speaking both languages, because otherwise mesquita would not be able to exist, the word. Is it clear?
Yes, it is clear, and then I will have quite a few questions and the speculation to add to this. But yeah, so far very clear.
Yeah, but just to be a bit of a party pooper, okay. Well, me, yeah, not the linguist, by I have to. I don't want to be. How can I say? Of course, it means to me. I don't want to be a big party pooper, but the linguist came back with this argument, okay? That he says, look, it can be that masjid is coming from Aramaic, but we have to be maybe a bit careful. So he doesn't agree with Al-Jallad. This is what we have to say. And this is his argument, right? That maybe at that time the J wasn't really spoken, but it was more like a G. And therefore, from G to J, well, it doesn't really work out. For those that want to pause and read it, they can read his explanation. There's also this explanation here, the second part, because it would not fit in the same screen. But this is his argument, right? And that's what I have for today.
Okay, well, I have a few things to comment on this. Well, first is, yeah, you're absolutely right. It is mezquita, and lots of people in Spain, they would say mezquita instead. The reason is like half of Spain cannot pronounce the Z in the proper, like you wrote before, the Castilian, and it is supposed to be the proper Spanish. We have that C sound, but lots of people in Spain, they just can't pronounce it. Is not just it's almost like a dialectical thing. Some people can't. Lots of people in my family, they just can't. So instead of using that sound, they have the other one, and it just feels weird when somebody just uses. No, it doesn't actually feel weird when you know that. If you see a Spanish person saying the words with the proper pronunciation of that consonant, and then you see somebody that doesn't pronounce it, it does an S instead, you don't feel weird about it. Your brain just recognizes that. It's a very, very common thing. So, nothing to worry about. Now, what came first? If it was first supposed to be the Z sound, and then it becomes, particularly in the South, more like an S sound, or if it was first an S sound, and then in order to make it sound, more Castilian, it becomes Z. That I have no idea, but certainly yes, that's actually the name of the
And another thing
how it is.
is that I want to point out is that later on, when I went again on Wikipedia, it just didn't say Castilian; it just said Spanish. So I don't know, and I don't know also when. But as you mentioned here, right? So there is this from S to S, very easy to transform, right? And in fact, some actually some Spanish dialects, they don't even have it, the S. So it's
Yeah. they can't pronounce it. That's the thing. They will still write it always like with a Z. It will be like that, but they just cannot make that sound. And particularly, that is incredibly common in all of the south, in the region that is still called Andalusia. They cannot pronounce that from well, from Al-Andalus. It actually retained that name. They don't have that sound in their vocabulary. So, but Spanish people were used to that particular accent, and when somebody says a word in that manner, we don't find it odd in any way. It's just think about it as two ways of pronouncing the words, and it really depends on the person. So, no problem with that. Also, the ending that it is like with the ta, the T and the D, they get very much confused, and we see that as well between Italian and Spanish, and even in different dialects. That the T and the D, you can pretty much change that in many places. So I wouldn't have a problem with, say, masjid or masjida, and going from the D to the T, like no problem. That happens a million times. Now, my concern in all of this would be the actual usage for that word for a synagogue. Because when I've been studying Islam, every time has been synagogue has a name, and a masjid is exclusively a mosque. Well, mosque, masjid, same, and it is exclusively for Islam. But if we roll back to a point, can you actually put the previous slide as well, where we have the evolution of the word?
Okay.
Probably,
This
yeah,
one?
this one. Yes. Okay. So let's
Okay.
see. In the 1480s, we have this word, so mezquita, and it is a synagogue. By the
Yes.
time that we get to the 1750s, it becomes a mosque. I don't understand that step unless it was meant to be a synagogue, like throughout.
Well,
Eh,
this step from Mesquita in the Nota, well, we have to think, okay, what's going on here? 1480s, Mesquita was found in notarial archives. 1750, it's in the Soldani. So I believe he wrote like a history of Malta, right? Now, it could be that the definition of the word, was forgotten to an extent, and it was retained in Italian. Maybe, I don't know. There is, now I'm just thinking of the top of my head, right? So, but because this person had contacts with, he was not like someone who was just in Malta, right? Or Audashuvem, actually. But he had contacts with, they knew what was going on around the world. So, but yeah, but what we know for sure is that 1750, he gives the definition to mean a mosque, like
okay,
in the current Spanish way of rendering mosque.
right. So,
Because, for
okay,
example, in current Maltese, if you go out in the street, right, and you ask the people what is mesquita, they don't know what it is. Now we use the Italian moschea, so it could have been another step, after this one. Maybe at that time they were calling it mesquita, but now mesquita is forgotten, and we know and we say it moschea the same as in Italian.
okay, right. So, let's see if I can explain what I'm thinking. I mean, you are quite familiar with the material that people have been putting out there, like Odon Lafontaine, J. Smith, Mel, and so on. So we know now that for a fact that this movement of Islam didn't begin because it was Islam. It began as a movement that was, let's say, at one end you have Christianity and at the other one you have Judaism, and the things get merged in a very weird manner, probably with heresies and stuff, and then Islam appears later. Hence why here on the channel we just unpack the Quran and we are told a very different story to what we've been told. So the context where the word would come from, if it was in fact masjid, would be from a context that wouldn't be Islamic, not yet, because the book appears way before Islam. So it would be a context between the Christians and Jews. And with that in mind, then it would have to be the word that they use for the synagogue. To me, it would make sense because if we look at the mosques, they are actually copy-paste versions of a synagogue. They don't look like a church. They look like a synagogue. They have an actual wall that faces towards Jerusalem. They have even the central section where the Torah scrolls would go. So when I'm thinking about a mosque, it looks like they copy pasted the plans from mosques. And when we know that the origins of Islam had nothing to do with Islam, that happens later, so it would look to me like they were still having synagogues, but then they're calling them masjids. So that would be my initial thought. But then I think
But
another thing to consider. Okay, please go on.
yeah, no. What I want to say is that even the Jews were calling synagogues masjids.
Right. Right,
Right.
that would make sense. Now, what I would put forward, and this is probably incredibly wrong, is basically what came first, the word or the place? Because we have in the Quran the Masjid al-Haram and the Masjid al-Aqsa, and we have it from lots of people, including Dan Gibson, that Masjid means the place of gathering or the place of prostration or gathering place, something like that. So it would make sense that the place where people go to pray, you will call it a masjid. But think about this as well. In the Quran, we have the Masjid al-Aqsa mentioned, and then later they create the Masjid al-Aqsa in the real world. So we have it in the book in the 7th century, and then the beginning of the 8th century, they create this place called the Masjid al-Aqsa in Jerusalem. So first, you have the place in the book, and then it becomes the place in reality. But the Masjid al-Aqsa in the Quran, it was not the place in Jerusalem. That comes much later. So I'm thinking whether it is possible
But
that the word,
you have to remember also another thing, that masjid per se, it means the place of prostration, right? So
yes,
this is a thing that that the Arabic languages do. If in the Maltese, for example, right? But now it's kind of fossilized, so we don't do new words, but we have words which are, for example, let's say misrah. The first thing that came to my mind, right? It's like the place where you rest, kind of, and later they became into the squares of the villages, right? So it shouldn't be, if you're looking at it from that perspective, um, it it shouldn't be like, you shouldn't think maybe of it only as the place as in the building. It could just be the place where you prostrate,
yes,
right? Just I mean, I'm here being just um, the devil's advocate, right?
yeah,
The but the point of this presentation is just this, that let me ask you this: do you what do you think about the argument that
mhm,
if mosquito, the Spanish mosquito, can only be derived? So I'm here. I have to go back to this slide. If the Spanish mosquito is derived from Aramaic, as Al-Jallad contends, right? Because this is the whole crux of the presentation. The word mosquito was not imported into Spain. It was created in Spain from Aramaic. Therefore, the people that conquered Spain had to know Aramaic. And this then goes hand in hand with what Owens was saying, that if you remember in the beginning of the slide, that until the 900 AD, the Islamic, let's call it like that for want of better words, were bilingual in both Aramaic and Arabic.
yes. That I don't question, and as well, Gabriel Reynolds mentions that. So
Exactly.
I would see why the word could come from. Well, it certainly came from the people that invaded the Iberian Peninsula, and those people certainly spoke Arabic and Aramaic. and that's fine. And then
And
from
that's the
which word?
that's the sorry to cut you off, but that's the crucial point, right? That Aramaic is so, even at this stage, Aramaic is so important.
Yes, and because it would have been the lingua franca for hundreds of years and so on, and they were bilingual. So that would make sense. So I wouldn't contend and say, no, 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 it has to come directly from the Arabic. Okay, maybe from the Arabic or the Aramaic, those people spoke both languages, and it is the only opportunity for that to actually make it into the Iberian Peninsula. Is that connection with the word synagogue? And that one, I know that you said it's one record that has been found, so maybe there is more to that story and there is a problem with it. But if we go with it, and we
Sorry,
are in the
I'm sorry to cut you off. Can you explain it a bit better? Where is the problem exactly?
no,
'Cause
no, I'm trying to actually, okay, it's not a problem. I'm just speculating here
Mhm.
that there is a precedent in the Quran, actually a number of them, where something is written in the book and that is in the book in the 7th century for certain. For example, we have something called the Masjid al-Aqsa. Let's just use that one as the example. We have others, Mecca and Medina and quite a few others. But let's go with Masjid al-Aqsa. So the book is talking about something called Masjid al-Aqsa. And then when Islam is really starting to kick off during Abdul Malik, a place is invented in the world called the Masjid al-Aqsa. The reason it is invented in the world is because it's in the book. So the book comes first, and then they create something in the world to justify the book. So what I'm thinking is it possible that the very first step, the very first thing that happened is that we have this term in the Quran called the Masjid al-Aqsa. And it means something different, something that we haven't considered yet, something very, very unique. But then when we get to Abdul Malik and Al-Hajjaj and so on, they are starting to put things into the world. So at that point, they take that word, Masjid al-Aqsa, they create the place in Jerusalem, and now, just like that, they have the word masjid to be basically a building, is the place of prostration, but it becomes the masjid. And at that point, this is still the same for Jews and Muslims, because there are no Muslims at this point. So the Buddhists still have this one place. They start calling it a masjid, and it is only hundreds of years later, as things move on, that we get two different words. The masjid, because the word appears in the Quran, is then the mosque, and another word is, say, starting to be used for the synagogues. So basically, yes, that would it be possible that because there are things in the book that are created later in the real world, is it possible that masjid in the book didn't mean basically a mosque or a synagogue? It meant something else, but then they started using it for the only reason that it is in the book, and they are trying to justify it. And we have Masjid al-Haram, so it has to become a mosque.
I think the linguist here may elucidate more on this. He says, even as far back as 500 BC, this term was coined and referred to any building where people prostrate. So,
Right. Okay.
right. So, it was not invented in that period. It was certainly something that the people were built, at least in Arabic Felix, right?
Okay, great. So it was well attested and everybody knew. Okay, so then that's phenomenal. And then the other question that then I would have is, you mentioned during this there was the Hemerite kingdom. And do you have any thoughts as to how words from southern Arabia, so Ge'ez, would make it into the Quran? Because these people spoke Arabic and Aramaic. Do you have any thoughts as to how the Ge'ez makes it into the whole mix?
It, yeah, well, I don't know exactly, but it could be that the most influence is not from. Yeah, if you remember, there was also a question mark. But for example, even in Maltese, we have certain influences that are from, but not from Ge'ez, from Yemeni, right? And these are, and also certain archaic features. So what could happen is that the old, let's say, the Arabic that was spoken here is not the Arabic of today. It's the Arabic of 1,400 years ago, which had certain archaic features still in them, which were the same as in South Arabian, sorry.
Okay, very
And
interesting.
then later, these archaic features were dropped out even in Classic Arabic. We will actually delve into this a bit, not a lot, but just to have a taste in the next episode.
Okay, great. So we'll look forward to that one. So, okay, this has been great. I will think about everything that you have shown here, and I will look through the slides again to see if I have any other thoughts about the word. Just because we use it in Spain, but that one is certainly puzzling that it would actually be used in the 15th century, end of the 15th century, as a synagogue. So, very interesting find. Let's hope
Um,
that people have some thoughts about that. And please, if people have been researching this word, let us know in the comment section below. And maybe we get clarity on this and we all get on the same boat.
JC, just that in the 16th century, because it was 15 something, if I remember correctly, that was a toponym, right? So Tamizjet is a toponym referring, and it was because this was in a contract, and Wettinger concludes that this was referring to the synagogue, which by that time was not used as a synagogue because the Jews were expelled, right? But it could be that you have toponyms are very hard to change, right? If the well, let me rephrase it. The definition of the word can not be in use anymore, but the people can still refer to that place by that old toponym. Toponyms are very interesting because you can see at what is the language of the people. When were the earliest? So, let's say if you look at Malta, a lot of toponyms are of Arabic origin, and we don't have anything from before the Arab period. So there was an argument that then Malta was depopulated and then repopulated by Arab speakers, because the oldest toponyms that we can find are from the Arabic stock, right? So now if we go out into and there are, if you go around, let's say in Malta, and you ask them, where are you from, and they will tell you something. Okay, most of the time they don't know what the word means, even though the word has a significant a meaning, a definition, and it used to be something that the people all would know, and now they don't know.
Yeah, so maybe the meaning was sort of lost. Well, okay, so that
Yes.
would be
Mhm.
for
But
linguists to know if they just carried on with the usage of a word, even though it has now changed. I find it a little bit odd, well, I find it odd, but hopefully we get some good comments on the comment section and someone can actually just give us more information on that. I find it very curious. It's a very curious example. Well done.
thank you.
Great. Okay. Well, look forward to to when you have the next slides as well ready, and then we'll continue with this exploration. I will prepare myself with as many questions as I possibly can come up with, Noel, to ask you at that point. But we are seeing that still Aramaic being a very strong influence, and it cannot be separated in the study of the Quran, which is great because we've been looking at the Aramaic already for a really long time, and we can confirm that those influences are there and it is necessary, whereas we're fans of Christoph Luxemburg and crew. So great. Well done, Noel. This has been great. I hope that you come back soon and keep showing us everything else that you have found through your research. And until then, would you like to just say some final words before we call it a day?
Yes. So if Islam is an Abbasid invention, right? They had from the beginning, let's say from the 1750s, they had another 150 years of Aramaic being very widely spoken everywhere in their empire.
Yeah, they
This is the
cannot.
implication.
yeah, they cannot replace the lingua franca if their language is not up to scratch, right? So they need to be ready for Arabic to take over.
It took time to change, let's
Yeah.
say, from the lingua franca being Arabic to that one being Aramaic.
Okay, great. Well, looking forward to the next time when we keep exploring this and see what else we find and how that will aid us at understanding the Quran better. But that will be most likely like next week. So for now, thank you everyone for watching. Make sure that you click the like button, subscribe button, share buttons, all of those nice buttons, and leave any comments that you have about this material below. Then Noel will be able to pick it up and we will take it from there. So have a very good week ahead, and we will see you soon. God bless you all. Bye-bye.
There is only one Quran, right? Every Quran in the world is the same. That's what you've been told. You have been told a lie!
26 of the Quran.
26 different Quran!
There are 0 Dawa guys apparently left on the planet who are willing to defend Muhammad in a debate.
Everybody can go and read it. This is a book full of mistakes in Arabic, in the grammar, in the spelling, in the pronunciation.
Whoever wrote the Quran made an error because they didn't quite understand what was written in the 7th century in the Torah and the Injil.
As promised, I will give you more than 20 reasons why I left Islam in this video.
We know that stories about Muhammad were made up on an industrial scale.
What in the world is this Injil?